Welcome back to Car Chat TV. My name is Oliver. Now we're going to be talking a little bit about Land Rover today, specifically Range Rover. What do we know about Range Rover? Those cars focus more on style, performance, technology, comfort, plush comfort. So let's look at the models. We've got the Evoque, the Velar, the Range Rover Sport, and then the Range Rover. Now you might be in the process at the moment looking at the two in the middle, the Range Rover Velar and the Range Rover Sport. Today, we are going to be focusing on this beauty, the Range Rover Velar, and I'm going to give you 3 huge valid reasons why this is the better buy. Okay, let's have a little bit of a refresher course on what the Range Rover Velar looks like, because it's a gorgeous thing. Some of my favourite features of the car, we've got these door handles, the way they go in, the way they pop out. At the time, this was the most drag efficient car that Land Rover made at 0.32. Now, of course, the new generations that come out, the Range Rover Sport, I believe is at a 0.29, and the new Range Rover is at 0.30. And they have taken the design cues from the Velar, haven't they? Because you can see they've got those handles, and we've seen those on the I-Pace as well. I love the copper accents here and here around the car. This is a lovely spec. And the bumper, so this is a 2019, hence the number plate, SER Dynamic. If you just got a Velar, you would not get this gorgeous bumper. And I think this front bumper definitely makes it stand out a little bit more. The other bumper's a little bit plain, a little bit basic. I'd love to know what your thoughts are in the comments. And let's shoot round to the back, because look at the rake of this car, low slung there. This is 4.5 inches lower or shorter to the ground than a second gen Range Rover Sport. So it just makes it a little bit more sleek and more refined. Lights, compared to the Gen 2 Range Rover Sport, they're quite blocky and big, kind of boxy, quadratic, the whole style, you could argue. Here we've got these nice slender lights around the side. Again, Gen 2, Gen 3, taking, the Gen 3, sorry, the Sport, is taking design cues from the Velar. Look at the new one, sleek. So this isn't even one of my reasons, but I'm going to say it. The Range Rover Velar is a better looking car than the Range Rover Sport. Second gen I'm talking about. That's not even one of my reasons. If you agree, let me know in the comments. Right now, let's get on with the first reason. Reason number 1, and I think it's a big valid reason, is the size and proportions of the Range Rover Velar. So we've got a 3 inches narrower on the width, 2 inches shorter on the length, and then we've got 4.5 inches lower than the Gen 2 Range Rover Sport. Now, the reason why this is a big valid point is when you are driving in the UK, we've got some serious tiny B roads. Parking is another one. This car is going to be more manageable for you. I've driven a few Range Rovers and Range Rover Sports, and they are big. They are a presence on the road. They're cool cars, I know. But when you're in the Velar, you're still in a big car, but it gives you that extra, that confidence, a little bit of an edge to go, you know, I'm in a Range Rover, but this is quite agile. Because it's low, because of those dimensions, you can go down the B roads, go down the alleys, go down some small different bits of terrain and have a little bit more confidence. So you could argue, actually, you're going to have more fun in the Velar than the Sport. Boot space. In the Range Rover Velar, we've got 558 litres. Knock them back seats down, you've got well over 1,500 litres. Now, in the Range Rover Gen 2 Sport, you've got around 700-ish litres. But do you really need that extra space? This room here is plentiful. So, towing is another important thing to talk about. So on here we've got the automatic tow bar. It's a £1,000 option, but it's handy. So let's talk about that. Here we go. Down the bottom, it's going to pop out. So with the Range Rover Velar, you've got 2,500 kilograms that you can tow. In the Range Rover Sport, it's got 3,500 kilograms, the max you can tow on the roads here in the UK. So it's 1,000 kilograms difference. Think about what you're towing. Do you really need that extra 1,000 kilograms to tow whatever it is you want to? That's why the Range Rover Velar is a better buy. Tax and fuel. So let's talk about tax. It's about £520 a year to tax. You look at Range Rover Sport, you look 630 quid. So that's £110 you're saving already on that. And then efficiency. All right, this is the D180, which you can't buy anymore, but this gets around 48.2 mpg. It's pretty good, and I'll be driving the car for a few minutes anyway, and I'll have a little check later on, and we'll talk about what mpg we are getting. So it's going to be more efficient buying a Velar, and it's going to be cheaper on your tax as well. That's a huge reason. Now, you could argue if you're buying a Range Rover, you shouldn't be penny pinching, but the difference between the levels are so vast that it has to come into consideration. And little things like cheaper tax and more efficient, especially in today's economy, you want to be trying to save where you can. So it's another great valid reason why the Velar is the better buy. List price. This is probably the biggest reason why the Velar is a better purchase. Now, if you're thinking of a Gen 3, the brand new one, Range Rover Sport, that starts at £80,000. The Range Rover Velar starts from £46,000. That is a whopping of a saving. But let's compare 2019 Velar to a Gen 2 Range Rover Sport 2019. You're looking at average price there, £60,000 for a Gen 2 Sport. This, you're looking at an average 35k. So you're going to be saving a ton of money in your back pocket, and you're going to still be getting a Range Rover sitting on your drive. You're still going to be getting the off-road capabilities. Yes, I know the Range Rover Sport is better off-road, but they are still awesome at going off-road. And how many people go off-road now? That's another question you should ask yourself. How often am I going off-road in the Range Rover Sport? If it's not much, then you need to be getting the Velar, because this still has those off-road capabilities. You've got the same terrain program down there, but the list price is it's a big saving. Think of the money, around £30,000 saving. You're getting a Range Rover and you're getting a better looking one. I want to talk about the interior of the Range Rover Velar, because what do we know about Range Rover? We know they have plush luxury comfort materials. You're going to get Range Rover Sport comfy materials there, you're going to get comfy materials here. Tech, pretty much the same. The Touch Pro Duo, that in the Range Rover Sport, slight differences maybe, but for all of that extra money getting a Range Rover Sport, you're getting the same class of materials, the same class of tech. I'm going to even argue that in the Velar, it's a little bit more minimalistic, futuristic and techy, because you've got the gear selector which pops up and pops down. And tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think the Range Rover Sport has that. It has a bigger gear selector, so I like when you turn the car off, that sits flush, adding to the sleekness and the reductionism of the Range Rover Velar. It's a Range Rover. You're getting a Range Rover at a much affordable price. It can do pretty much everything, give or take a slight few differences to the Range Rover Sport, and you're going to have a hell of a lot of money in your back pocket. Have I convinced you that the Range Rover Velar is the one to get yet? Let me know in the comments below. So let's talk a little bit about the ride height and the visibility. It's great, really good. Now the ride height, you're high enough to get that Range Rover, Land Rover experience, but you do sit a lot lower than some of the other models. Now, I spoke a little bit about MPG earlier and how efficient the Velar is. At the moment, I'm looking on my gauge and it's telling me 44.7 mpg, and that is going up. That's going up because when you drive this car smoothly, it pays you back tenfold. It really does. It's smooth. You're going to get great efficiency with this Velar. And at the moment, I have it in comfort mode. The steering is super light. It's so easy to maneuver. And when you take this car to multi-story car parks, let's be honest, some of those are still so old school, they're so tight. You're going to be wanting to drive the Velar when parking over the Range Rover Sport Gen 2. No doubt about it. So when it comes to parking, this car's going to be a lot easier to maneuver. And at the moment, I'm just kicking back, chilling, and enjoying the Velar experience. It's soaking up all the lumps and bumps on the road. This version doesn't have the air suspension. That would make it extra pillowy, but you don't need it. It's more money, you know, and you're looking at this model here. It's a great entry into having a Range Rover parked outside your door saying, hey, look, I'm successful, I've got a Range Rover. And I think I've made some really valid reasons why the Range Rover Velar actually is a better buy than the Range Rover Sport. So if you're someone watching this video and you're in between saying, oh, you know, I've got some money, I want to buy a Range Rover. Do I want the Range Rover Sport? Maybe I want, you know, that power. Then you could say, yeah, okay, the Range Rover Sport is more powerful. But if you don't want those things, you don't want the extra space, and you want something that's maybe a little bit more manageable, like I've spoke about, and I'm probably repeating myself a lot here, but it is a big thing. It is a big thing, especially on the UK roads. So I don't know where you're from, whether you're watching this, but in the UK, we have some narrow B roads. There's a lot of different roads that sometimes can be quite scary and intimidating. And when you're in this car, it's a lot more manageable, and it just gives you that confidence to just tackle them with ease. And I love the Velar. I'm enjoying my experience with Velar, and I think we're going to head back now, and we're going to go and do a little bit of a summary of what we've learned with today's episode. So that has been our episode on 3 reasons why the Range Rover Velar is a better buy than the Range Rover Sport Gen 2. Now, if I'm being honest, I gave you more than 3 reasons actually, and I think they're all pretty valid. It is smaller, the proportions are better, they're more manageable. The car is insane, you've got a good boot space as well, and the real thing, it's cheaper. You're going to save yourself a lot of money from the prices that we spoke about. So, the question is, are you going to buy a Range Rover Velar, or are you going to go for the Gen 2 Range Rover Sport? We would love to know. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Throw us a like, get subbed, and we'll see you on the next one.